Hey everybody, it's Mr. D and we're going to go over some conditional formatting examples in this video so you can use these tools to do your homework with regard to highlighting certain cells based on their value. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do it. First with some blood pressures, because blood pressures have a normal range, an elevated range, and a high range. We can color coordinate those with a specific value. And then we're going to look at some inventory levels and talk about whether or not how we should highlight those based on the value. So there's a very simple way in Excel to highlight based on a value, and it's up here under conditional formatting. And if I were to highlight these cells, for example, this is a systolic or diastolic, I can't remember which one now, but it's the lower number of the blood pressure. And Excel can be very intuitive with some built-in functions. For example, highlight cell rules, and we have greater than, less than, between, equal to, blah, blah, blah. So if we had a range that said under 80 is normal, let's put normal here, and anything 80 to 100 is elevated, and anything above 100 is dangerous. Oops, dangerous. On the low number, and then on the high number we say anything less than 120 is normal, 120 to 140 is elevated, and anything above 140 is dangerous. We can apply some very simple rules. We highlight the range that we want to apply the rule to, go to conditional formatting, highlight, and the first one we want to have is less than, and we can put a number is less than 80, and if that's going to be normal, we're going to call that green just because it's normal is green. And very easily there you have it, Excel formatted anything below 80 with a green. And you could do the same thing for the 80 to 100. There's the between function, so if it's between 80 and 100, let's fill it with yellow. And while we don't have a value over 100, if it's greater than 100, greater than 100, let's fill it with red. And we can test that. Let's maybe put 105 in here, and it worked. Do the same thing on the upper number. Conditional formatting, highlight cell rules. Here we have less than 120, and we want that to be green. We also want to add one between 120 and 140 to be yellow, and then anything over 140, greater than 140, we want to be red. And we'll change this one again just to test to see if it works. So there's a quick example of how you could format these cells based on a value, and then as those numbers change, maybe you come back to the doctor later, or these are blood pressure readings over time, it could allow you to monitor those and visually see where we're good, where we have some caution or some areas to focus on, or where we're in a danger situation and need to act immediately. All right, so we're going to now look at how to format cells based on a formula. It's a little more involved, but nothing you can't handle, and it's a lot easier to control things, especially if you don't want to fit exactly into the rules that Excel already has built in. In this case, we want to look at the cell values in B2 to B8, and based on the value, we either want them to be green, yellow, or red, and we've got the criteria for it here. We would go up here, select the range like we always did, go to conditional formatting, and this time we're going to go to what is called manage rules. And I like to use manage rules because if you click on new rule, for example, and you put in a rule, when you click OK, it goes away. And now if I have more than one rule to put in this case I have 3, I've got to go back up here, choose conditional formatting again, and tell it new, and go through the whole process. It's a lot more clicks than is necessary. So I like to go to manage rules, and start with this control, and I have a new rule here, an edit rule. When I'm done with this new rule, it's going to come back to this screen and I can click new rule again. It's a little faster, I believe, than clicking conditional formatting every time. So let's do a new rule, and this time we're going to use what's called use a formula to determine which cells to format. And we know that formulas require us to start with an equal sign or a plus, and they require us to have a condition or some kind of addition or something. In this case, we're going to say, does B2, the value of B2, is it less than 3? The less than 3 is the criteria we have down here that was given to us, and we want to set up a condition where if it's true, then it will be a certain color. So it will evaluate this condition, and if B2 is less than 3, it will say it's true, and then it will allow us to pick a format, and in this case we want the format to be green. One little thing to watch out for here, Excel by default locks these values, and you can see there's a $sign in front of the B and a $sign in front of the 2. Because we're going to copy this down to other cells, if we leave it like that, every other one of these cells is going to reference B2. We don't want to do that. We want it to reference B2 here, but B3 here, and B4 here, and B5 here, and we can certainly do that by deleting the $signs. And we've learned by pushing the F4 key, we can scroll through the 4 different options until we get to what we want. In this case, no $signs. Hit OK and apply. Now, every cell we have that's less than 3 has highlighted itself. We need 2 more rules, though, one greater than 5 and one that's 3 to 5. So let's do another new rule. Again, using a formula. In this case, it's a formula. Let's put the equal sign. B2 greater than 5. That's a criteria we have here, and we want it to be red. But don't forget, we don't want to lock this cell. We want to be able to copy it down by having it all selected. So we're going to take the $signs out, click OK, and apply. And now we have everything that was above 5 highlighted red. The only other thing we have left is the 3 to 5. And there's in essence, two criteria for this rule. It must be greater than or equal to 3 or less than or equal to 5. And we're going to use a command that we used or learned about this week called AND, because an AND says both conditions or however many conditions we put into the equation must be true. In this case, it must be greater than or equal to 3 and less than or equal to 5. We start a formula with an equal sign. We know it's an AND function, and we have 2 criteria. Greater than or equal to 3, and I can just type this B2 less than or equal to 5. And again, we want to take these locked cells out of here because that'll mess you up. So again, looking at the logic, we have an AND statement, so it's going to be true or false based on the criteria, but for an AND, all of the criteria must be true. Is B2 greater than or equal to 3, and is B2 less than or equal to 5? And if it is, we want the format to be yellow, and OK. And if you look, we have exactly what we asked for, and these are dynamic. So if these numbers were to change over time, you get new data from the floor or inventory changes because you ship some products, then the corresponding conditional formatting, or in this case the highlighting, changes. Now, what about over here? We want these cells to be green, red, or yellow as well. How could we do that? Well, there's a couple ways. We could put in a formula to look at this cell, and if this cell is less than 3, highlight this. Or we could say, look at this cell, and if this cell equals low, we could format it one way. If it equals high, we could format it one way. Or we could copy what we've already done. And here's a little trick for you. We could look at these conditional formatting rules again, and we can see what we put in by managing the rule. We have 3 of them here, and I'll see if I can scoot that over. It may not let me. I guess I can't make that any bigger. But we have three rules here. One is the less than 3, one is the greater than 5, and one is the between 3 and 5. And if you remember, let's use the less than 3. Click on Edit. We didn't lock this cell at all. We wanted to be able to copy it down and reference cells 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 in the rows of that range. If we were to copy this cell over, let's just use the Format Painter and paint the cell here. And let's look and see what that new rule says. That new rule says C2 is now less than or equal to 3. So when we copied it over, it moved from the B to the C. We don't want that because we want to reference B. So we can leave B locked but not the 2 and accomplish the same thing. So if we go back to our original cells that we put the formatting in for and manage the rules and edit this, if I lock the B, let's just do it so you can see what happens. I locked the B here, but not the 2. I edit this one, I lock the B, but not the 2. And on this one, I edit it, I lock the B, in this case both B's, but not the 2. If I want to copy that formatting over, it should still reference column B. And we've used the Format Painter before where we highlight and hit the Format Painter and then we'll reformat those to be the same. And now they match. What was in B is now in C. And if we highlight this and look at our manage rules, you'll notice it stayed with B. Before we had C, now it stayed with B. Another way to do that copy, is to highlight the range that you want to copy, right click, click on copy, and then right click, but instead of choosing paste, let's choose paste special, and we only want to paste the formatting. So one option there is keep, we should be able to just paste the formatting only. Right here is just the formatting, whether it's $signs, in this case it's highlighting. We click paste formatting and we could see now how that worked. So I hope that helps you with highlighting ranges based on their value. You're going to need that for your homework. If you have any questions, drop me a line and we'll do something else. Take care. Bye-bye.